Hello, this is my CST 100 demonstration video, and I am going to talk about how knitting can decrease the money that you're taking from your wallet at the store. So, I learned how to knit because I found that it was cheaper to go out and buy a thing of yarn for like, I don't know, approximately $3 to $5, and a pair of needles for $3 to $5, and knit myself my own scarf or hat instead of paying $10 to $15 for a scarf or hat that will not be as warm or as stylish and will not cause as many questions to be asked by people in the streets. I get a lot of questions asked, oh, did you make your hat? Did you make your scarf? And I can always say yes. So today I'm going to teach you how to knit because it is going to be cheaper for you. And then when you become more experienced, you'll be able to make your own sweaters, you'll be able to make your own mittens and gloves, and eventually you'll be saving a ton of money, especially like blankets and stuff. They're very expensive, whereas knitting one will only take about $10. Okay, so the first step is you get your yarn, and when you get your yarn, I would suggest leaving it as it comes instead of rolling it into a ball because it takes forever, and it's more likely that the ball of yarn will roll away, whereas a spool of yarn will not. So you get the yarn that you choose from the store, and you make a slip knot. So you take it over your finger, and then tuck it back inside itself, pull that loop through, and tighten it. And then you take one of your knitting needles that you've chosen, put that loop on there, and tighten it. I leave a little gap because you're going to need to slide the other needle in there. So I leave a small gap, as you can see. And then you cast on however long you want your scarf to be. So I'm going to put on 20 stitches. So this is stitch 1, and I'm going to put on 19 more. 3, 4, 5. You see I'm doing that? You wrap it around. 6, 7, and then you just keep doing that. And if you ever lose count, it's always nice to make sure that you do enough stitches that are either on a 5 or a 0, because it's easier to count, because you can just go, okay, that's 5, and that's 5. So I know I have 10 stitches, and it's easier to look at. So I have 10. And there are my 20 stitches. And I know right now it doesn't look like that's going to make a big enough scarf, but I will show you what the end product will look like at the end of the video. So then you take your other knitting needle, because they come as a pair. Thankfully you don't have to sit there and buy one needle at a time. And so you pick up your second needle, you slide the second needle under the first stitch, see, as you can see there. You use your second hand to grab the needle so that you don't drop it. Make sure your yarn doesn't tangle, because that can always be an issue. Then you take the yarn from the ball, not from the tail of the slip knot, wrap it around the needle that you just slid into the knot. You push it under so that what you just wrapped around goes onto the second needle, and then slide the first stitch off the first needle so that you only have one stitch now on the second needle. And you do that, slide under, wrap around, you push and slide off, and you do that for all of the stitches on the first row. Now the first and second rows are always the hardest that I find, and so after you do those rows, it's going to be much easier. So I'm going to skip ahead and do a few more rows and show you what it looks like after I've done a few. So that is what after doing a single row is going to look like on your needle. It's a little twisted right now, which is normal. You should still have 20 stitches, and I will count mine here in a minute. And then after the first row, it gets incredibly easier. So don't worry if you mess up several times, because that's perfectly normal. So then you flip the needle around so that you're working on the second needle with the original needle that you put all the that you casted on the stitches. You will want to slide your stitches up towards the tip of the needle. I find that to be much easier than working from the middle of the needle. So here we have, we've slid the stitches up to the tip of the needle again, and you want to slide it under. There's a loop here. You slide the needle under the loop and through the hole. Then you take the yarn, wrap it around, push that piece of yarn underneath, and come off the needle. And you do that with all of the stitches on the needle for every row that you want. And because this is a scarf, you can make the scarf as long or as short or as wide as you want, and it'll be however you want it. If you're making a scarf as a gift, you can always ask them what kind of scarf they want. And there's a variety of colors of yarn. You can go to Michael's or Joann Fabrics to get yarn. I live in Fauquier County, so my biggest places to go are the Michael's in Gainesville and the Joann Fabrics in Warrenton, especially if I'm already at near those places, because then it's no trouble for me to stop by. So if you have a gift card and you want to you learn how to knit or crochet, there's definitely books that can teach you probably better than I can. But if you want a visual demonstration, you have come to the right place. But it is cheaper to make your own clothing than it is to go to Kohl's. Well, Kohl's isn't a good example if you're a fan of their sales like I am. But it's cheaper than Walmart or Target or H&M, Aeropostale, Abercrombie & Fitch. So there is a third row. See? You can see that the rows will come out as little bumps in the beginning until you get some length on your scarf, and then it'll be much easier to see and count how many rows that you have if you are making something that is row specific, especially like a blanket that's made in patches that you have to sew together. But for now, a scarf is very simple to knit a scarf. So your end product, as you can see, this was the row that I ended with. And if you want to learn how to end your piece, you can email me at the username that's below, and I will show you how to cast off. But there's also plenty of resources on the internet to teach you how to cast off. So this is the length of a normal scarf that I made for a friend. This is the beginning of it, the beginning row. And as you can see, I used a bigger needle, so there's more space, and you can see kind of through it. And you can see how the stitches are supposed to be. Yes, you can. So it's very hard to keep yourself the same tautness of your string, and that comes with practice. But I think that making a scarf is the easiest thing to do. And as you can see, as I pull the is that if I pull it apart, you can see where the rows are and where they meet up as well, where they intertwine. So, as I said before, it is very much cheaper to make your own clothing than to go out and buy clothing, especially something like hats or scarves, and eventually socks, sweaters, mittens, gloves, and the like, unless you are doing outdoor work and you need leather, because you cannot knit leather. You can get any kind of, I use acrylic yarn because it's the cheapest, but there's wool yarn and hand-spun yarn that is sold at Joann's and Michael's that you can get, and those are all very more expensive than the acrylic, but the acrylic does come in more colors. I would also, if you're going to knit something that's multicolored yarn, I would suggest practicing with something that is solid colored first, and then moving to something that is multicolored, even if it's just a short couple rows like I've shown you here. I hope you enjoyed my video, and if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I know it was hard to see the knitting in some of these shots, but I can promise you that knitting is much easier than it sounds. And it's a lot of fun, especially if you have anxiety. Thank you.